We're live.
Okay, Scott Alexander, Delaware County Council President. I'd like to call our meeting out of recess to order to consider a amendment or a change to Resolution 2020-011, resolution regarding 2020 budget shortfall due to COVID-19 pandemic. Bill had made a change from the 20 hours to 29 hours for us to reconsider. After the meeting, there were a couple of departments that would have been affected that we had in some other language that was taken out of the resolution that we had excluded. Yeah.
Yep. Shouldn't I do roll call just so we can show that Mary's not on board?
Yes. Go
You
ahead.
ready?
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ballard,
Here.
Mr. Bledsoe,
Here.
Ms. Chambers, Ms. Lassiter,
Here.
Ms. Piper,
Here.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Close by.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Here.
Mr. Craycraft.
Here.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, that's all right. We were just going through the change to the resolution 2020-011, which was changed from 20 hours that was approved this morning back to 29 hours. In there, Bill Hughes created a new one and sent it out. Everybody should have a copy of that. There were some issues, especially with the cleaning of the building, that had been excluded in a previous statement that was in the original that got taken out. So this is actually to correct that. And Bill, we need a motion to approve this or just the change?
If you approve this, then you are approving the change. So it'd be,
Okay.
Yeah, because this guy's a new number.
So we would need a motion to approve for and a second for discussion.
I got a question. With the two questions, actually, Denise posted it as a amendment to resolution 2020-011. And if we're amend that, would we attach an A to the 011 rather than that Bill had sent us as resolution 2020-012? No,
we did the 1-2. No, we're going to use the 012.
Okay.
Denise didn't realize that he had done an amended ordinance at first.
Okay,
Yeah.
I did clear up that discrepancy with the emergency postings. Okay.
Well, I'll move to approve so we can get the discussion going if someone would like to second. Second.
Okay, I got a motion from Jessica, second from Jane to approve 2020-012 on there. Any discussion?
I got a question, I guess, since we had since our meeting. I don't think anybody's intent was to discard or create an issue for somebody that might be trying to get unemployment. With the language as it sits right here, it still says we just changed the 20 back to the 29. Would we be better off served as just discarding that second sentence, that number 2, because there's already a resolution passed by the council or ordinance that all part-time people will be paid up to 29 hours a week for their hours worked, not to confuse it with some maybe getting laid off, not put back to work. Am I making myself clear on that? Are you getting what I'm trying to ask here? Because if the county building's not opened up next week, then those that are not working, are we saying they're off? Just part-time?
You're
Because
breaking up, Larry.
there's some offices that some employees typically only work maybe 15 or 20 hours, or that's all they work.
Well, I think that brings up a good question as to the made this morning. Maybe that's a question for Mr. Hughes, but it's definitely something to bring up.
I mean, we want to be all fair to the employee at this point. We're trying to get through this week and see what happens with the county bill next week. I think what the intent was to try to save every $100 we can, because obviously when we get down the road 6 months, it's going to make a big deal. And I don't want to somebody's unemployment if that's the case.
Okay, can I say something? This is Donna.
Yeah, Don.
Okay, if you eliminate 2, then wouldn't that put back the fact that if they don't work, they still get paid?
It might,
Because number 2 in here says actual worked hours not to exceed 29. So if you take that out, we're going to go back to just like we are, where part-time people are getting paid whether they work or not.
well, that's exactly what I was asking, because are we, by doing so, if we leave that in there, we've already got an ordinance that you can only work 29 hours, but right now, all part-time people, with the exception of the cleaning crew and the mail person, and maybe a couple others that I'm not really certain, are getting paid because they're in the building working. What are we do? Are we essentially then saying if you're not working, then you're just laid off? I mean, I think we're waiting on what somewhat might free up a little bit next week. So if you took out basically what the resolution would be, just a hiring freeze, with the exception of public safety employees at that point. And then if we have to address further cuts or reductions, then we would do that at a later date soon.
Part of the problem, Larry, is that we only appropriate part-time in bundles per office holder or department head. We don't actually choose how many people and how many hours. They kind of do that on their own.
Exactly, right.
And I don't know how to handle that.
That's the part, because I know over the years part-time has actually increased because with some reductions in past, overtime has increased substantially in several budgets. Those dollars are all going to be important very, very soon.
I agree.
Bill, can you give any clarification on as to whether part 2 in there would or could affect anybody as far as unemployment goes?
Well, I think you have 2 possible classes of part-time employees. If you have part-time employees that are simply told not to report to work until the building reopens, and by the way, you're also not going to get paid, they would probably not be able to claim unemployment because they have an assurance that they have a job waiting for them when the building does reopen. The other way to handle it is to lay off those people and say you don't have a job necessarily, and they would be able to claim unemployment compensation.
Well, and I think that was the intent in the original resolution. Once that paragraph or sentence got taken out of there, which it also accounted for essential maintenance and cleaning personnel under the commissioner's budget. And then I think Larry was making an amendment to that to include the the mail
The mail
person as
clerk.
well in there. And then things went the other direction as far as the wishes of the council.
But as Ron pointed out, the council does not hire part-time people. That's up to the individual department head or office holder.
Bill, I've got a question along that line. If the individual office holder or elected official signs a payroll timesheet and submits it to the auditor for payment, and that person did not attend work or perform duties, is that ghost employment?
Well, I think the state has told us that during this emergency, they're not going to treat it as such.
I've been trying to find that someplace. I haven't been able to find it.
I believe I have it in a file. I will locate that and circulate it.
What are the wishes of the council then going forward here?
So I guess I have a question. Mr. Henry, maybe you can answer. Have you talked much about when you think the county building may open? Like, is there a specific date in mind? I think that would kind of help us figure out next steps as well, if we had a little better understanding. When that might be.
Councilman Alexander, this is John Brook. Can I address that question?
Sure.
Sure, please.
The commissioners have had discussions about reopening the county building on a phase-in basis. A lot of it's going to depend on what the governor does with respect to his stay-at-home order, which expires on Friday.
Right.
If the governor extends that stay-at-home order, then the county building is going to remain in its current condition. If the governor modifies it, then the commissioners are going to modify their stay-at-home order. They've already started putting things in place in the various offices to address public coming in.
Right.
And it's going to be a slowly phased in, which will probably start the 4th or 5th of May. So that's their plan, at least initially, is to phase it in, but it all depends on what the governor does, his order.
John, is the building closed or is it just closed to the public? I've talked to some office holders and they're actually bringing their staff in. So I'm curious as to what you mean by closed.
The building is closed to the public only, except for emergency matters. The courts are open for emergency matters. And
John, let me answer this. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
What I would like to do is open it up Monday, just to staff. I've talked to all the department heads and elected officials. They know that when we say open, we want to open, but we want to open slowly and safely. Some of the department heads are just going to have half of the staff in, so it'd be half one day, half another day. So, and John's right. This all depends on what the governor does. But I think everybody up there, our whole intent with this thing is to keep government running.
Right.
No matter what we have to do is keep government running without jeopardizing the safety of our employees. And obviously, we didn't want to wipe out. We didn't want an office to get wiped out by COVID-19. So this whole time, the intent has been to keep the people home that we need to keep home, and keep the people, keep the government running like it has with this condition anyway. So the ideal thing would be to get everybody back Monday. That could happen, or that may not.
do we happen to know how many part-time employees we currently have? Does anyone have that information?
No,
So I personally, I'm kind of wondering if we omit bullet point 2 about the part-time employees, see what the governor does on Friday, and what the commissioners are going to do. And then maybe we're just recessing and we do have that bullet point of this resolution shall take effect upon passage and remain in effect until amended or repealed by the council. So it kind of gives us that opportunity to maybe see what's going on. I don't know. My 2
Well,
cents. at the moment.
I kind of Jessica on that. If you get 2, we're keeping it the same for the remainder of this week, then basically the resolution hiring freeze. And then we can adjust need to next.
The commissioners have 10 part-time people, just FYI.
We know there's several. We kind of separate who we would need in there. Warning, we had the clean personnel, obviously cleaning, and then the mail clerk because of the mail. And then, there's other, just don't want to exclude anyone that may need to be in there.
I'll tell you what we have real quick. We have one in weights and measures and one in mail room. She does both. We have another one in the mail room. We have one in the VA, one in the commissioner's office. Five in maintenance and one in HR.
right, but Shannon, this includes all funds, not just county general. This
I'm
is
telling you
everybody.
I'm telling you what the commissioners are responsible for.
Right. There's several more other than that. That's
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yes.
right. So I mean, that's
Trying to get some perspective.
Well, and I think the other area, obviously the cleaning crew is essential to help in getting the building back open and continuing to stay open. The other issue that arose out of this was in the 911 communications center has some part-time people now in there that if we had reduced them to 20 hours may cause some issues for them in retaining those employees to either be able to move into full-time positions as well. So, and there may be some other areas that are affected as well.
Well, I think ultimately we're going to have to come to the realization, though, that I think reduction is a word we're going to have to kind of entertain here at some point. So I want to say that I think we're definitely running into something.
So I guess the question is back to what is the pleasure of council regarding changes in the ordinance or in the resolution?
Go ahead, Larry.
no. Go ahead, Ron.
I'm okay with taking, number 2 out, and looking at that and revising it from that standpoint. But I think ultimately we're going to have to look further down the line with this when it comes. There's obviously some little details here that we're going to have to get figured out, but I feel like we're going to have to reduce at some point. But until we maybe can do some calculations and whatnot, I'm okay with taking number 2 out. If that's an option.
That's what I'd entertain.
Is that a motion, or would you like to make a motion?
I move that we remove the number 2 bullet point from 2020-012.
I second that amendment.
Okay, got a motion from Ryan and a second from Jessica. Any discussion on that?
My
Okay,
only
can-
discussion is I will vote based on my confidence in Mr. Hughes clarifying the ghost employment situation. And I have confidence that if he will do that, I'll be okay. If not, I'll ask to change my vote at a later date.
Okay,
He answered your question, Ron?
He didn't answer it. He said he'd try.
yeah,
Okay,
I'm gonna give my confidence to him. He's been pretty good so far.
any other input?
Resolution.
Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
I want to say one more thing. I want to remind you that when I said if Mr. Hughes doesn't come up with what I'm looking for, I want the right to change my vote. And if I vote with the majority, I have that right to bring it back up. So that's my position. Or anybody else on the board. If you decide you want to change your vote, if you vote with the majority, you can ask for it to be reconsidered at a later date. It may all be moot by next week.
Well, and I think, Ron, we're definitely gonna have to revisit some things here within the next few days. No question about that. So.
Fair enough.
I think that's the beauty of having that additional bullet point about us being able to amend and repeal this, as well as us recessing our meeting. It gives us the ability to do that as needed. So, I mean, obviously things keep changing and we're doing the best we can under, given the circumstances. And I said that this morning, and I'll say it again, we've all been on the phone a ton, and especially today. I mean, I've been on the phone with a lot of folks that I'm looking at on the screen right now. So we've all been in communication. And to Larry's point earlier, it was never our intent to do something to hurt anybody. But, we're all trying to navigate this the best we can. So here we are. And hopefully we'll have some more clear information so we can continue to make the right decisions with taxpayer dollars.
Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Okay, am I doing the roll call on the second motion, which was to remove number 2, right?
yes, it's an
Yes.
amendment to the resolution.
To remove number 2.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Bledsoe,
Yes.
Miss Lassiter,
Yes.
Miss Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
and Mr. Alexander.
Yes. And then a roll call on 2020-012
As
Please.
amended.
as amended.
As amended.
Okay. Miss Lassiter,
Yes.
Miss Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Bledsoe,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Okay, so to make this clear, you're going to continue to pay the part-time people.
Yes. That's Ed.
Correct?
Who determines how many hours they work if they're not working? What if they weren't working 29 hours a week? Are they going to get paid 29 hours a week now?
They were doing an average of pay. Is that correct, Steve?
What they were doing, I believe the resolution said they were to be paid for the hours that they normally work. So if they work 15 hours a week, they're supposed to turn in 15 hours a week, not move it to 29 hours a week. And so I sent an email out last week and told everybody, all the department heads, that we're going to start policing that, and we're going to go back through, because if they work 15 hours a week before, obviously we don't want them turning in 29 hours a week. That's not fair, and that's obviously not honest. So we're not going to do that. So hopefully everybody follows the email that I sent to all the department heads, that we're going to watch that and make sure that all you got to do is go back a couple of pays and see what they have been working in the past. And some have done it, you know, but hopefully this email I sent has corrected that, where if they work 10 or 12 hours, then that's what they're to be paid for, is 10 or 12 hours.
Well, we sure appreciate that, Steve. I like working with you, and I'm glad you're doing
Thank
that.
you.
Motion to approve the amended ordinance, yes, but it's down here. Is there already have a motion in the second? Right.
Shannon, does that answer your question?
Yes, I just want to make sure I start getting phone calls again, I'm sure.
Yep, I know.
I do have one question. Do we need to approve our e-signatures on this document like we did our previous meeting for this?
We will, and I'm gonna ask for that approval from you on e-signatures. And if you could, we'll just go through the roll call.
Are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Bledsoe,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes,
Mr. Alexander.
Yes. And I will need a motion to recess if we're done.
Just a second there. Hold on just a second. I want to do bring something up here real quick. You know, I know we had talked about the idea of, you know, department heads right now with lack of revenue stream, as Larry had mentioned this morning, I think we need to be real honest and real upfront in communication with our department heads here. You know, I think that, you know, oversight's key. And I think there's going to be some interesting things, interesting issues we're going to be dealing with because of shortfalls. So I want to make that perfectly clear that, you know, there's some of these department heads, please be able to communicate with us because we've got to make some decisions here. So.
Ryan, I'd like to follow that up because I just happened to have the report from the Association of Counties that was sent to us to lobby our Washington DC representative.
Hey, we're only supposed to be discussing this
Oh.
emergency amended
Yeah.
resolution.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, but
No, that's fine.
Well, shoot.
that's how it
That's
was posted.
I mean,
For another time, Ron, can I get a
No.
motion to recess?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks,
Okay, got a
Don.
motion from Jessica, second by Ryan. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Ms. Piper,
Yes.
Mr. Quakenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Bledsoe,
Yes.
Ms. Lassiter,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes, we're in recess. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Lock us out.
Bye.